I die.
Here we are like mites on a plum. And the plum is this little planet, and it goes around an insignificant local star, the sun. And that star is on the obscure outskirts of an ordinary galaxy, the Milky Way, which contains 400 billion other stars. And this galaxy is just one of something like 100 billion other galaxies that make up the universe. And it is now beginning to look, this universe is one of an enormous number, maybe even an infinite number, of other closed-off universes. So the idea that we are central, that we are the reason there is a universe, is pathetic. 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 To simply come to grips with the real universe that we really live in. And if some of our myth and some of our religion is inconsistent with it, it's time to change the myth and the religion. It is true that some people are disappointed that the Earth has such a comparatively insignificant role in the universe. But my view is, first of all, it's not our job to impose our wishes or fears on the universe. Our job is to understand what the universe is really like.
And it is about how we get consciousness, how we get conscious feelings. And in that book and in a couple of others that he wrote, Damasio argues that actually a human being has to have a balance between the reasoning part and the emotional part, and he shows that neurologically. The seat of reason, more or less, is the frontal lobes, it's the frontal area of the brain. The seat of at least in part, of the emotions is the amygdalas, which are these little two things at the base of our brain. And what neurobiology shows is that the two are very deeply interconnected. There are a lot of neurons that go from the frontal lobes into the amygdalas and vice versa. So there's this constant feedback back and forth between the two areas. And we know that if that feedback is interrupted, that breaks an equilibrium, and the resulting human being is anything that you really don't want to be. It's this hyper-rational person who, however, doesn't care about anything. a lot of problems in the world derive from the fact that there, frankly, isn't enough critical thinking going around. There isn't enough use of reason and rationality in the broader sense. It would be better for human beings at large, and for society at large, to use more rationality.
He comes in and he's got this big birthday cake. He's got this huge big birthday cake. I'm looking at it thinking, that thing has got to be dosed. I said, but it looked good. It was beautiful. This beautiful big. So I thought, I'll just take a little of the frosting here. So I took this, and then somebody comes in and says, yeah, we put about 800 hits of acid in that frosting. And I go, oh God, I'm gonna, oh Jesus Christ, I'm gonna be totally fucking wiped out with this. Yeah, we put about 800 hits of acid in that frosting. About 800 hits of acid in that frosting, and I go, oh God, I'm gonna, oh Jesus Christ, I'm gonna be totally fucking wiped out with this, And by this time, I didn't really enjoy playing, under the influence of psychedelics. Under the influence of psychedelics. About 800 hits of acid in that frosting, and I go, oh God.
a society based on science and technology, in which nobody understands anything about science and technology, this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it?
one of the things that's absolutely clear to me when you look at the biology of behavior, human behavior, is there's no free will. It's an invention when you look at the number of influences on behavior from what your brain was doing. If you really truly believe there's no free will, there's no basis for hating anyone. And if people really believe that, that would make life rather different. If you truly believe there's no free will, forgiveness has to play a role that's 1,000 times more dominant in life than it is now, or it even stops being meaningful in the sense that we use it now. predictable version of an ant. It's a good thing to try to reduce the amounts of it in the world, in people around you, in loved ones, whatever. That single fact just seems to transcend whatever you might do to turn all of our feelings and longings and everything into their biological substrates.
Can the human brain figure out the human mind? It's a great question. If it is the human brain that actually creates the human.
silver and scarlet, indigo and azure, obsidian veined with gold, and lapis lazuli. Reality is plywood and plastic, done up in mud brown and olive drab. Fantasy tastes of habaneros and honey, cinnamon and cloves, rare red meat and wines as sweet as summer. Reality is beans and tofu, and ashes at the end. Reality is the strip malls of Burbank, the smokestacks of Cleveland, the parking garage of Newark. Fantasy is the towers of Minas Tirith, the ancient stones of Gormenghast, the halls of Camelot. Fantasy flies on the wings of Icarus, reality on Southwest Airlines. Why do our dreams become so much smaller when they finally come true? We read fantasy to find the colors again, I think, to taste strong spices and hear the song the sirens sang. There is something old and true in fantasy that speaks to something deep within us, to the child who dreamt that one day he would hunt the forests of the night and feast beneath the hollow hills and find a love to last forever somewhere south of Oz and north of Shangri-La. They can keep their heaven. When I die, I'd sooner go to Middle-earth. They can keep their heaven. When I die, I'd sooner go to Middle-earth. When I die, I'd sooner go to Middle-earth. When I die, I'd sooner go to Middle-earth. They can keep their heaven. When I die, I'd sooner go to Middle-earth.